Toss a coin to your Witcher, O Valley of Season 2. We're going to talk about the good, a little bit of bad, and some ugly. I don't know if there's actually ugly in this one.
Hey everyone, welcome back to AsArt with Nick and John. Check out AsArt.space for the audio and video links. So this episode is going to be covering through episode 6 of season 2 of The Witcher. We're going to be covering the last 3 or so episodes in a separate installment, and then we're going to be getting into season comparisons and visual effects and all that other stuff in separate installments. So I've been looking forward to this. This was one of our earlier installments as a channel, and Nick, I know you've been kind of looking forward to this as well. So
Yeah,
early on thoughts?
fun.
Yeah, so early over thoughts as far as
I
season
like
2?
the shades of gray with the characters. I like how there's no time jumps, and I like how it's more character development than like trying to create some kind of crazy, like shocking story moment. Like, oh, it was a time loop or whatever, or, you know, it was this connected to this kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's funny. It's been long enough to where I actually was trying to remember. It's like, what happened in season 1? I can't quite remember completely everything. But a thing that a lot of people did not like, and, you know, I think the showrunners were saying, like, yeah, we took, like, not a gamble, but there was a creative decision we had to do this time jumping, you know, forward and back in time. And, you know, a good number of people didn't particularly like that story element. And the other big thing that's a difference between season 1 and season 2, so far, at least especially for me in the episodes, is the budget is a lot larger with season 2, which is not uncommon for multi-season, multi-season things like this. Is that if the season 1 does well, is you get a bigger budget as you go along. And so Nick, you were saying that the budget was like double.
It's just on par with like the Marvels, like Disney Plus stuff. So I think it's like 10 million a show or an episode. I guess you can say 10 million an episode.
Wow, so that's a lot. I had forgotten. Nick had mentioned it's on par with like Marvel stuff now, but I completely forgotten that. And I think it completely shows. Do you think it shows as far as the quality?
Yeah, it's a big difference. Difference.
Yeah, because so if you guys have not seen some of our visual effects breakdowns for the season 1, I enjoyed season 1. I think, Nick, would you say overall you enjoyed season 1?
It was okay.
Okay.
I enjoyed the first 3 episodes. Other than that, it just kind of got weird and stuff with the story. Like, I like the ideas and the themes and stuff that they were covering. It's just the storytelling was just all over the place. And, you know, maybe if you're, you know, into the books and you play the games, it was easy for you to follow along. But as me, I'm not a book reader for The Witcher, and I've never played any of the games, so I was just a casual, like, oh, this is a fantasy thing, blah blah blah, and I was just like, what's going on here? This is crazy.
Yeah, so for me, I had played the games, well, since first season. I actually finished the first Witcher game. I played 2 and 3, and so I had a little bit of context. I haven't read the books, but I had a bit of it going in. But still, I wasn't a fan of the.
But he can't even remember the first episode or
the
first season.
Yeah, I can't even remember some of the stuff that happened in the game, so I'm completely all over the place. That's just my memory in general. That's not a
okay.
bash on
Let's
the
talk
stories.
about the first episode, Beauty and the Beast. That's what I got out of the first episode. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is Beauty and the Beast. He's cursed to look like a beast, and the only way to break the curse is with love.
Yeah, you know what? And the things that struck me from the get-go is like right away the effects look way better. I mean, I think you're getting some flyovers right away, and right away I was like, oh, you can tell this upgrade like as far as budget and quality of what they're able to do. And you see him talking, and I was having a hard time. I'm like, I feel like if this was CG, you know, the boar's head talking lips, like you would be able to tell, even if it was high-end CG. And so do you think this was mostly makeup here? And we'll do more visual effects later on. Yeah,
because it just felt really stiff with the movement, which made me think, because I feel like if it was 3D, we would have seen more muscle movement and stuff around the face.
Because I still felt like it was really smooth and really good. Like even in the very best CG, like face animation you get for characters, and I'm thinking more human characters. So maybe we can get away more with a boar, you know, head or things like that. But usually something looks a little bit funky, and I thought that overall looked amazing. So maybe that was more makeup. I'll be very excited when we start getting visual effects breakdowns. So we're going to get into visual effects more as we go along. But yeah, it definitely had a Beauty and the Beast vibe, but we got a Bruxa later on, which is something we'll definitely enjoy talking about, because that's definitely from the lore.
We can talk about it now. Go for it.
Okay, well, go ahead. I mean, what did you think of that whole story arc and the characters and from that first episode?
I just enjoyed the frame rates on that character, the way she was moving differently and like glitching out and stuff like that. I just really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was a different take. I mean, and that's something that, at least in the games, I mean, basically a vampire type character, right? But they brought some cool, unique elements that you didn't get in the games or anything like that. But, like you were saying, as she's moving, it kind of has a weird, like, kind of strobiness to it, almost like stop motion type thing. But you're mixing and matching that with the regular, movements of film. And that's obviously kind of some cool effects work. And again, we'll get more into that as we're getting into effects. But it's a cool way to depict an odd, surreal type thing to it without having to just...
Yeah, it was basically a vampire, right?
Yeah, basically a vampire. I mean, there is some differentiation. You have straight up vampires in the Witcher universe, but then in this you do have Bruxes that are kind of a slightly different thing, but really, really cool. Like, I thought the way they depicted it, and then, the kind of end story behind the two of them and their relationship was really cool as well. And again, a big thing in this universe is, like you were saying, shades of gray. Okay, so Geralt isn't just a straight hero, but he's not a straight heel either. It's very much shades of gray, and there's a lot of politics, and no one's just the good guys, no one's just the bad guys. This is as far away from Star Wars, light side, dark side as you could get, and your good guys just aren't good guys, and your bad guys just aren't bad guys. So even a Bruxa that's sucking blood like a vampire isn't just a bad, a bad thing as well, which I definitely enjoy.
It's a good first episode of the season too, because I think it foreshadows a lot of what goes on in the season.
Yeah, for sure. It was a great first episode. It did establish that thing where a lot of the episodes are these standalone little chunks, almost like a mini series story that I completely enjoy. And a lot of times I don't like it when they don't, kind of really arc into these overall story arcs, and it's not all leading to a greater story. Well, that first one
wasn't for sure. The first one was like its own thing, but then from there we kind of get right into the main story.
And I usually don't like episodes like that, but in this, I totally enjoyed that, and I like that. And you're still getting.
It's funny because those are like the best episodes from the first season are like the little short stories of The Witcher.
Yeah, and you know what? And I don't know if, again, not having read the books, and there's quite a number of books, but I don't know if these are mini stories in some of those that they're using. Because one thing I have to remember is they do borrow some elements from the games, but I don't think their licensing of the Witcher IP includes the games. I think this is with the author of the book. So I think they're able to use the stuff from that, but I don't think they're necessarily able to use the stuff from the game. So it's like, okay, what are they actually using? From what we've gotten some really cool comments from all of you, on the channel saying like, yeah, a lot of you aren't really thrilled that are game fans or book fans because you just feel like they're creating their own kind of fan fiction almost. And I'm curious to see if some of these story beats, like the Beauty and the Beast basically, is a story thing in the books or not. I'd be fascinated to read that. So episode 1, I thought was really, really fun. Yeah.
We can jump over to the castle now.
Sure.
Episode 2, we get to the Witcher training castle, which is like a really cool, really cool, like the wall kind of from Game of Thrones. It's surrounded by like snow, and it's like these men that live up there by themselves.
We're men, knights of the round table.
It was really cool to bring Ciri in because it just brought a whole like fresh like vibe to that cold, frozen area.
Yeah, it's a staple of the games, at least, that I can speak of. He always kind of goes back to that as a base. You do have the Witchers, the names, and some of them, like the really, young ones, sometimes, they will filter in and out as far as, their personalities and things like that, and do they die and stuff like that. And the history of the Witcher, one thing I do like about this season so far, at least in the episodes that I've gotten to so far, is, and Nick didn't like some of this so far, is that you're getting some of the world building of where did Witchers come from? Where do monsters come from? And you had little hints of that in season 1, but I feel like they're taking their time and exploring more of that in this season so far. I've really enjoyed that, at least.
Well, the Witcher stuff was fine because that pertained to the story. I think when it doesn't pertain or push the narrative forward, when they do like side quests and side characters and stuff like that, it's almost like wasting your time with characters you're not even going to like really follow up and through with and stuff like that, which is the overarching like plot of the story.
Which I
Like
guess,
the Witcher stuff totally makes sense though, because Ciri's learning about the Witchers too, so we're learning with her. Like that's fine, because that's like episode 2 practically, like where she's almost like starts her training, and you kind of learn about the Witcher way and stuff. It's just once you start going into 3 and 4, and you dive like deeper into the politics, they're like introducing these characters that really aren't even making any big changes or moves or anything like that in the universe, and it's just kind of, it's like, and they're probably trying to plant seeds, but it's just the way they're planting the seeds, it just felt like unnecessary right now.
and that is something that I'd imagine is difficult to do. Is there's at least in the books and the games, or at least in the games, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and Geralt is just having to react to these things, right? He's just a smaller player in this bigger world, and he has to react to the stuff going on around him. And even though these are like 50 minutes an episode, you're having to, like you said, you're having to plant these seeds of stuff that's going to happen maybe 3 or 4 episodes down the road. And so some of the stuff
funny though,
might feel disjointed.
I feel like if they handled the politics like they did in Game of Thrones, I feel like it would be so much more entertaining. Because like Game of Thrones, it's amazing, right? Because they're like sitting down at the table, and it's these like discussions of them trying to outwit someone just like at a table and stuff like that. That's another reason why I like the show Succession on HBO too. Because even though every shot's taking place in a room where people are just talking, basically, it's just the dialogue and the conversation and what they're fighting for is just so intense that you're just so interested. Like, oh, is Tyrion? What's gonna happen here? What's gonna happen here? Like every time like a new character was entered into the scene in Game of Thrones, like season 3 and 4 and stuff like that, it was like, oh, how's this person gonna go for the throne, or how's this gonna, you know what I mean? Because they did such a good job establishing the way it works, and I just feel here the politics just feel like it gives me weird flashbacks to like Star Wars politics in like episode 1 and 2.
And let me
you know
ask,
what I mean? Like,
do you think that's because, I mean, George R. R. Martin, our writer of Game of Thrones, is just, I mean, they're considered amazing books. You've read the books. I haven't read the books, but I understand they're masterpieces of writing in that area for the politics and that story. True. Do you think it's just that they don't have that same quality of source material for the politics, or do you think it's just not written in a script and conveyed the same? Because again, not having read the books, and some of you can comment down below, like, hey, the politics in the books are written just as well. They're just not conveyed on the screen as well. Do you think it's one or the other based on what you...
I just think if the thing that bugs me is like it feels like they're doing this adventure chase scene with or narrative with Ciri, right? So we're like who's chasing Ciri? He has to defend her. Like that's like kind of like the thing, right? Where like Ciri's the main character in this story. So it just feels like the other stuff's not aiding to her story. And I get there's probably like a broader picture, like the elves were probably gonna like want to support her and back her because she has like, you know, the special blood in her, or the power of elder blood and all this other stuff. And I feel like, you know, there's reasons for it, but just kind of felt like it was just felt like they were kind of trying to extend the story, where I feel like if it was like 6 episodes, it would have been like a strong 6 episodes.
Yeah, you know what? I can't decide if they're focusing on Ciri and Geralt. You know, like you said, it's almost a chase for her because they know that most people are going to be in it for the character attachments, or because, like you said, all this is probably going to become political importance down the road, whether it's season 3 or 4 or whatever, and they just have to plant these seeds now. I mean,
hopefully it becomes political importance.
I mean, definitely they've already laid the groundwork. You know, she's a princess, you know, her people were destroyed. She has this elder blood, and she's already being sought out by these political organizations because of her importance. So that's already laid the groundwork. We just haven't seen how she's going to play into that yet. And whether they go the route that the games did and things like that is completely, because the author that wrote the Witcher books, he considers the games like fan fiction. He's not a fan of what the games did, even though it's made him massive amounts of money and popularity. He's not a fan of that. So whether they go this route at all with the show is, you know, remains to be seen. But it definitely is going to be important as far as how she plays in this political stuff. So it makes sense that they have to develop this concurrently, even if it's not going to become an important thing until later on down the road. But yeah, I can understand what you're saying. Is like she's the main focus right now, and they're kind of just sprinkling in this other stuff. Because like Frangilla and, you know, the other, you know, Lodge of Sorceresses and things like that, they're just kind of little second fiddle to this main story right now. Yeah. And you're just kind of, you know, kind of getting.
Yeah, and I feel like it's going to become important, probably,
for sure.
But it's just in this storyline, like I feel like they could have caught us up in like one little sentence or paragraph of instead of trying to give us all this backstory on certain characters. I don't know, but that's just my opinion. I mean, you can comment down below, or like John, he loves this. He's like, I wish it was 20 episodes of just nonsense characters. I'm just kidding.
Nonsense characters. Wow. So let me ask you this. So do you think instead of sprinkling in, a small little scene or two with these other people that you're not as interested in, do you think if they develop these characters in their own, because I remember I can't remember if like Breaking Bad and series like that, they dedicated episodes to people, or maybe I'm thinking like Mandalorian, or I can't remember what it was, but certain shows we've watched, they dedicate like an episode to this person, or maybe I'm thinking The Boys. I'm completely all over the place, but they would dedicate an episode to this person, and then they dedicate an episode to this person, and really develop their story, and then they move on to the next. Do you think that would work better here, or do you think that would lose people even more?
But those characters just aren't big enough to even want to develop, though. Like I get like Yennefer's teacher, her Mike match. I get like she's so well established in the first season, when, obviously she's going through a training and all that stuff like that. But like this season, I get she's like she was like on this like trying to get more power, but it just felt like it was wasted because we really didn't see anything of that yet. You know what I mean? Like it's just, but then again, this is only episode 6. Gotta be careful here. I don't want to spoil.
It's interesting.
I don't want to spoil anything.
Nick, well, he's saying, "Oh, I didn't enjoy the whole season." He watched the whole season in one night. So there you go.
I mean, Netflix, thank you for releasing everything, but also I'm not thankful because I'm the type of person I just gotta consume, and I want to consume until it's done, and that's what I did. But John didn't do that, so that's why we're stopping with episode 6.
Yes.
But I brought up Yennefer, and I want to say I enjoyed them taking away her powers.
Yeah,
I was a fan of that.
Yeah, you know what? Usually I feel like it's a cop-out when in between movies or in between games. I mean, when you have a character at the end of their arc, hero's journey at the beginning of movie 1 or game 1, they become ultra powerful. You have to try and figure out a way that you reset them to where they can go through that journey again. And typically it's like they have amnesia or they lose their powers. And that feels like a cop. You're like, all right, think of something better. But for whatever reason, I was thinking about this exact same thing too. I'm like, I kind of like this. I don't know why, but if she would have just remained powerful and arrogant and it just kind of reset her journey. She didn't go back to being Piggy, but she had to start over as being humble and, whatever. And how it's being acted through. She's trying to resist just wanting her power back. She's trying to find her journey her own way instead of like just seeking out the power the quickest way. But it seems like she's actually, at least at the end of season 6 or episode 6 so far, she's kind of given into her temptation. It's very interesting. I'm curious to see where it's going to go.
It's going to be. I really enjoyed the last 2 episodes a lot. I really enjoyed the last episode a lot too. So.
Yeah.
But just so you guys know, John makes awesome leather cup. What is it
coasters.
called? Coasters. Leather coasters for cups. This one's really cool. It says toss a coin to your Witcher. We have like the Witcher stuff on there. Valley of Plenty. But it's a beautiful little cup holder. I use it all the time when I talk to John and stuff like that. But yeah, go check it out. It's John's. He makes them himself with a laser cutter and all that. So he's super talented guy. Go support him at AsArt.space. But one more thing I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to throw that in there before I forget. But do you like The Witch in the Woods?
Is that an old Disney film or no?
No, that like The Witch in the Wood here.
Oh,
Remember
The Witch in the Wood. Okay, there we go. The
Witch.
Watcher in the Woods was an old Disney movie that I never saw. I'm like, why is he jumping into
The
this?
Witch in the Woods.
Yeah, you know what? It's a complete like weird thing to me right now that I have no idea. The Witch in the Woods and the hut
it's like
being on
Baba
legs.
Yaga
It's a total Baba Yaga folklore thing, and so I totally thought we were going to see it on the legs type thing. We didn't see that, but yeah, I mean, it hasn't paid off yet to where I know what it is. I don't know if it's going to pay off. Nick, don't spoil it. I'll get very mad if you do, but it just seems like a MacGuffin where you don't really know what the payoff is. It's just pushing the story forward. I'm not sure if we're going to see it pay off, but as of episode 6, don't spoil it for us, Nick. Have you liked it?
That was also one of my complaints too, was the cabin in the woods stuff. But we can talk about that with the final one because anyways, but I don't want to spoil anything. But
don't do it, Nick.
Yeah, we'll talk about it in another video.
But yeah, as of now, I'm not a huge fan of it because it hasn't been explained. It's almost like the Red Lady. It's like this weird, mysterious woman that's just pushing forward. Though the Red Lady in Game of Thrones, I liked a lot more the way she is just this mysterious one, and she'd like play through people. Whereas this Watcher and this hut, whatever it was, it's just here and gone, but it's still playing all these important figures. And you're getting these little voices. It's like, oh, they're going to come take your power. And you're seeing all this stuff happen with these main characters, but it's not explained. Maybe there's going to be a payoff where I'm going to enjoy, but right now it's just like, all right, well, what was that little thing? It's like, that's just a weird plot device, as it is right now.
And this is The Witcher, everyone. So I'm going to ask John for his opinion on the monsters.
Yeah. You know what? I think the monsters this season look way cooler overall as far as the quality of effects work than the first one. Every now and then I'll see ones I'm like, oh, that looks a little like that in the last episode when that, I forgot what it was flying towards the screen. The eyes looked a little bit weird. I mean, every now and then something.
Oh, where she had like a connection to it too?
Yeah. Every now and then it'll look a little bit weird, but overall I've really liked how the monster, like, a number of them have not been, out of the games to where I can compare, oh, this is this, and like the Leshy and things like that were in the other games and stuff like that. But I thought they've been fun creatures. Like, they're not your run of the mill, like, here's a centaur and here's a minotaur type thing. So I've enjoyed that they're exploring different types of creatures, and the way they've been
like that tree
have
one.
Been fun. Yeah. Like, have you enjoyed
the tree
monsters?
one? Just reminded me of like a boss battle in like a video game, because like the way it was like crawling on the walls, like it would stay on the wall for a little bit, and then you have to like hit it in the head, and it falls down, and you like hit it.
That's funny.
Then it crawls back up. It's like
yeah, it's like a stage boss battle where you have to go through the different stages. Yeah, that's hilarious. I didn't think of that, but now I am. Thank you, Nick. You ruined that one.
It's like stuck in the corner, and like then
hilarious.
like a teammate comes in, is like, I got him, now you do something. You know what I mean?
Hilarious.
It's like, okay, over here, I'm holding him, hit him now.
That's so funny. So
the other one that was cool too, it reminded me of like, there's always a bigger fish, where they're like, oh no, it's the tree monster running, then like this other monster like destroys that monster.
Yeah.
It's I have legs, watch out.
Yeah, which is funny because in the games, those Leshy creatures were pretty big bads, and then you had this thing come up behind and just tear it in half. Like, oh, we didn't even get to really enjoy that, but okay, well, on to the next thing. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, Nick, and we'll put you on the spot here. So, our Witcher mentor, right? He was at one point, fans were lobbying for that to be Mark Hamill, right?
Yeah.
Vesemir, the Witcher mentor. Do you think Mr. Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker himself, would have been a good Vesemir, or do you think he would not have been a good role?
I think he would be, because I think we would have like a very interesting like voice character from him too.
Do you think it would have been too recognizable for this, or do you think Henry Cavill at this point is almost too recognizable based on
one thing I have to give Henry Cavill props is I feel like he really goes all in with this Witcher character.
Yeah.
And I mean, I really like what he does with the voice and stuff like that. I've been a big fan of. I liked him more, and maybe just because I like this season more in general. But I really like his character more. I really like Yennefer's character more in this season. It probably has to just do with the writing too and stuff like that. Even though I did enjoy like Yennefer's arc of like from Piggy to her power thing. I did enjoy that a lot too in the first season. But I've really been enjoying the second season overall, and I have to say, man, you're doing great, Cavill. You're doing great.
Yeah, some people aren't a huge fan of him. I overall like him a lot. Now, the guy that voiced Geralt in the games, he is the voice of Geralt, and Henry Cavill's really trying to get that grumbly, low voice. And so he's definitely trying to mimic that the best he can. But yeah, he totally has embraced the character, and I think he's doing a great job. And some people, like some of the comments we've gotten, they're like, yeah, I really don't like him as this character and things like that. But I've honestly like enjoyed him, and just maybe it's like just a fan that he's into games and stuff like that too. It plays like a little bit of bias into that, but I thought he plays the role really well. I think he and I was not a fan of Yennefer in season 1, and she's been a fun character. I like you said, the transformation to Piggy to, Yennefer that you see. It was the way she's depicted as far as how young she was, and that I didn't love about season 1, but the way she's been written in this season, like you were saying, I think I've liked her more. And then Ciri, like we're actually getting a good development of her.
First one, good. I really enjoyed her character, and I really enjoyed her like dream sequence. scene where she's like going through past memories and she like sees her mom, and her mom like makes like an eye contact. And I'm still confused if that was Siri doing that and like she was controlling her own memory and like doing things, or if there was like someone reaching out to her through like the Elder Blood or something like that.
Yeah, it almost seemed to me like, and this is just a story speculation on our part, but it seemed like either there's something going on with the Elder Blood that goes beyond what Triss was expecting to have happen when she was doing that with Siri, or there was someone else that was trying to kind of locate her and like trigger her in that or whatever. But yeah, it's definitely a fun way to depict things in this world.
Yeah.
And, you get to speculate on it and things like that. But yeah, it's been a fun journey for her. And she was just a plot device in the first one, really. She hardly ever appeared. And when she did, she was just kind of a side, story of like, all right, she's going to meet up. And her whole story was the reason we had these time jumping forward and back in the first one, which we didn't like. And now
that was Triss with her. Triss was with her, right?
Triss was with her, yes. Okay. And now Yennefer has been in the last episode was with her and Geralt. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that sequence a lot.
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that sequence. I always enjoy like even like in Harry Potter when they go through memories and they're not like interacting with the people, but they're kind of like reviewing the things. But I just love the element of every time the mom would like make eye contact or like talk to her, or every time they would speak there, she would like look at her or something. And I'm curious if that's going to be a payoff in the next one. Like, is her mom still alive somewhere? Like, is she in a cabin in the woods? Well, she's not. I'm sorry. I'm just going to let that out now. That's not a spoiler, but like maybe the mom's still alive. So,
well, I always like when they dig into things, and this is not something that was really ever explored in the games. I mean, Ciri she's hinted at in a little bit of the other games, but she doesn't really show up until the third one, and you don't get a huge backstory for her.
Oh, she doesn't show up until the third game?
Mm-hmm. She doesn't show up in the third game. She's playable for a little bit. She's much older. She's not a child. She's playable for a little bit, younger. You get a little bit of her growing up at Kaer Morhen, in the Witcher kind of like, kind of fortress or whatever.
So there must be a lot more of her in the books.
Yeah, I would imagine so. I wouldn't be surprised if this story, to make it her a more likable character, they're, kind of expanding upon that. But yeah, in the game, it was a more sparse thing. And so, but the games are more about, Geralt. That's what it was meant to be.
Did you like her like Milan training sequence? She was like, let's get down to business to become a Witcher. When she's like doing the like training thing and she gets like knocked off and all that stuff.
Oh, I was waiting for the Rocky music to cue up, I was like, all right, here we go.
That's what I'm doing. But like, it's like the Disney, Milan's like the Disney version of that. Anyways, go on. Gosh. Like, did you enjoy that sequence? Were you a fan of her like training and stuff like that?
Yeah, I thought it was just, I think a lot of these things happening are more insight. So like you were saying, you liked Triss and Ciri being at Kaer Morhen, and the Witcher
stronghold. But that pushes the story.
Well, I just like the idea when you hint at existing relationships. When Triss shows up at Kaer Morhen and all the Witchers like Marigold, and everybody's greeting each other like, oh, there's this history here. It's not just this new existing thing like Harry Potter's going to Hogwarts for the first time. But when he did in the movies, they're like, oh, it's Harry Potter. Like there's an existing history of him being a legend there. Like I like things like that, and so there's this existing relationship with Triss and the Witchers, and you see these, this sprout of this plant, and like, oh, this only grows where Elder Blood and things like that, and so all these little like hints of this like richer, I guess, history is a fun thing for me to be able to see. So yeah, I'm totally enjoying these type of things, and the training and stuff like that. I just like that it's giving you a hint of what the Witchers themselves, and when she wants to become a Witcher, Vesemir has this flashback of what the young Witcher boys have to go through, the trial of the grass, as they call it, and that's something that's a big thing, featured throughout the Witcher games, and it gives you an idea on the lore and the world building and stuff like that. So I think that's fun how they integrate that in.
Nice.
Yeah, so fun stuff. All right, guys, so we have a number of episodes to go still, and after the episode wrap-up, we're going to be digging into visual effects breakdowns, comparing Season 1 to Season 2. There's definitely some differences as far as budget and story and approaches and everything like that. Check out AsArt.space for all the audio and video links. We definitely have some Witcher content already existing on the platform, so check all that out. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next AsArt. Witcher Geralt.